This week, President Lee Jae-myung's first summit with Donald Trump has set off new calculations on the Korean peninsula. From the prospect of dialogue with Pyongyang to Seoul's delicate balancing of relations with Beijing, the outcome now feeds directly into preparations for the APEC leaders meeting in South Korea's Gyeongju. For more on this, we have our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young in the studio with us. Welcome, Soo-young.
Hi, and it's nice to be here again.
So, Soo-young, let's start off with one major outcome of the South Korea-US summit. Presidents Lee and Trump are willing to make a meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un happen, right?
There is indeed some cautious optimism. After the summit happened, Unification Minister Chung Dong-yeon said hopes were raised for an early resumption of dialogue, but that conditions must be created first. He noted that since Trump is unlikely to visit Korea again next year, APEC in October should be seized as the opportunity for a meeting with Kim Jong-un. Chung has long pushed for the revival of the Inter-Korean hotline and other dovish gestures, and he's widely expected to continue pressing for such measures. Despite the Lee administration's peaceful overtures, though, North Korea's response so far has been dismissive towards Seoul, most recently blasting President Lee Jae-myung's commitment to the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. However, Seoul officials like Ri Sung-lak, they have National Security Advisor Ri Sung-lak, that is, have admitted that inter-Korean dialogue may take some time and that it's constructive not to set expectations too high. However, remarks over the past weeks by Pyongyang senior official Kim Jong-un do indicate that the regime is not entirely close to dialogue with the United States.
And Soo-young, Kim Jong-un's attendance at China's Victory Day military parade is highly interesting in that regard. But first, let's talk about the significance.
Sure, Angie. So if North Korean leader Kim Jong-un does attend the Victory Day parade next Wednesday, then that's going to be his first meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping since June 2019 and will constitute the 6th North Korea-China summit. So that does rather make it quite significant. And some observers say further that it raises the question of whether he might become more active in diplomacy like his grandfather Kim Il-sung. Until now, Kim Jong-un has never taken part in a multilateral summit, as he appears rather disinclined to share the spotlight with other world leaders. While the V-Day parade isn't exactly a multilateral event, but a Chinese celebration, it could, of course, present Kim Jong-un the chance to hold a flurry of meetings. He's likely to engage with, obviously, Xi Jinping and also Russian leader Vladimir Putin and perhaps even Vietnamese President Loan Quang. The North Korean leader may even form a three-way meeting with Xi and Putin in a show of force against the trilateral cooperation between South Korea, the US and Japan. So at this point, Kim Jong-un is unlikely to meet with South Korea's National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, given the regime's continuous criticism of Seoul. But never say never, there is still speculation that Speaker Woo might initiate contact.
And his trip there could indicate signs that Kim Jong-un is interested in having talks with President Trump.
Well, experts say that Kim Jong-un's trip could include consultations with Chinese President Xi Jinping ahead of any US-North Korea summit.
Because President Trump may try to meet Kim Jong-un on the occasion of the APEC summit, I think it's likely Kim will seek prior consultations with Xi Jinping, just as he did in 2018 and 2019 before meeting President Trump.
Although Trump may seek a meeting with Kim at APEC, it's still unclear how much South Korea would be involved in the process. Analysts caution that while Washington and Pyongyang could resume direct contact, Seoul's role might remain limited.
Even if Chairman Kim Jong-un and President Trump meet again, it's more likely they would meet on the northern side of Panmunjom, not the southern side. Depending on circumstances, Kim could even propose the Wonsan-Kaima Coastal Tourism District. In any case, whatever form a Trump-Kim meeting takes, Seoul is likely to offer all necessary conveniences to President Trump.
And when it comes to China, how is Seoul balancing its ties with Beijing?
Well, that's a good question, Inji, because this past week has been rather tricky as it not only featured the South Korea-US summit, but also marked the 33rd anniversary of Korea-China relations last Sunday. Now, Beijing has closely watched the Trump summit and has reportedly been inquiring about the alliance modernization of the two countries and shipbuilding cooperation as well, as it sees a larger US footprint on the peninsula as a security concern. Now, perhaps displaying its unease, the Global Times argued that South Korea will not gain respect without developing strategic autonomy from Washington. Now, at the same time, President Lee was pressured by the US side and was asked to comment on views that he is pro-China while he was in DC this week. And I think the answer really lies in Lee's letter to Xi Jinping. President Lee dispatched a special delegation to Beijing with a letter for the Chinese president, and he called for bilateral ties to develop into a mature relationship, while making it very clear that Seoul will also reinforce its alliance with Washington. Now, analysts say that this dual-track strategy reflects Lee Jae-myung's pragmatic diplomacy, which is really not choosing sides, but managing both critical relationships and even perhaps positioning Seoul to help promote dialogue between Presidents Trump and Xi.
This APEC may center on U.S.-China, U.S.-North Korea, and Korea-China summits. Korea-U.S. relations must go well for Korea-China ties to improve. I believe APEC will prove Korea, U.S. and Korea-China relations are complementary.
I see. Let's watch these developments. Thank you for coming in today, Soo-young.
You're very welcome, Wendy.